excited today to welcome debut author Julian Winters to the podcast. Julian is a gay African-American author who lives on the outskirts of Atlanta. When he's not visiting his very entertaining nephews, he can be found reading, drinking tea, or gushing to the world about his love of comic books. His love for writing comes from an intense passion to empower LGBTQIAP+ readers, especially young adults, with the positive notion that happy endings do exist. His debut novel, Running with Lions, comes out this week on June 7th. Welcome, Julian.
Hi. Hello out there, world.
Thanks for being with us to talk about this amazing book. Right before this interview actually is in the show, I'll have reviewed it and kind of been like all ravey and fanboy-y over it because I really loved it. Tell everybody in your words, what is Running with Lions about?
It's a bit of a coming of age story. It's about a goalie named Sebastian. He's entering into his senior year on his high school soccer team, and he's really excited about their season, but he's also really nervous about his future because all he knows is soccer and his friends. Outside of that, he has no plans for what to do after high school. So he's going into this season nervous about the role of being a leader because he's so great on the field. And on the first day of their summer training camp, he finds out his ex-best friend has joined the team. And that kind of brings about a whole new set of problems for him because their relationship is not in a great place, but it's an unknown reason why it's in that place. And so the story is basically about him trying to come into his own while also mending his friendship with his ex-best friend, Amir. And from there, it's a little bit of romance, a little bit of a summertime good feel about it. But it kind of ends on what I love about being able to write is a happy ending.
Mm-hmm. And you really kind of picked from a romance standpoint, one of my more favorite tropes too, because enemies to lovers, but then you actually have that full circle of friends to enemies to lovers, as you understand how their relationship broke and then heads towards reforming.
Yeah, that was one of the great things about writing this for me was being able to do that, was taking it from a friendship standpoint, then hitting that really bad patch, and then taking it to a whole nother level as I've experienced that myself in life. So being able to write about stuff like that is it's always fun, to kind of step into that comfortable shoe and say, okay, I can do this.
Right, what you know, right? That's what everybody says.
Exactly.
What inspired this tale?
A lot of things inspired it, but two main things inspired it for me. One, growing up as a queer teen, a lot of the books I had, they weren't happy books. There weren't a lot of happy books starring queer characters. There were some great books out there, but people that I could relate to, there weren't a lot of them. And there weren't a lot where the main character was like me. I'm goofy, I'm clumsy, I'm terrible at flirting, things like that weren't really paramount in the books that I read. And so I wanted to have a book for this generation. I wanted people to be able to say, oh, that's me. I'm that goofy person. I'm that person who geeks out over things, but I'm also this person who has a tender, soft side, and I'm very dedicated to my friends. So that was one part. And then the other part was I've been watching this movement happening slowly but surely in the sports world where out athletes are accepted. There's no more jeers from the crowd. There's no more hard times from teammates and from rival teams. Though it's still not where I would love for it to be, I was watching this emergence happen. I said, why don't we have more books like that? Why can't I say to queer athletes, here you are. This is your representation, and you can play sports, and you can be great at it. And at the same time, you can be accepted for who you are, not for, what your sexuality is, what your religion is, what your race is, but just that great athlete that you are on the field. That's what we love you for, And so I really wanted a book that captured that. Mm-hmm. That, so that teens can look out there and say, oh, I can be myself, and yet I can still be accepted for the great person I am as a player.
Absolutely, yeah. I love those kind of themes when they work into books because you're certainly right about the movement that's been happening out there.
Hmm.
How did you decide that this would be your first book?
I didn't. I wish I could say it was all me, like, oh yes, I'm this creative genius, but it wasn't actually. A friend of mine knew I was struggling to, I was losing my spark for writing. I had a lot of things going on outside of writing, and I was kind of losing it. And she said, you know what, you should take this idea and turn it into a book, and it would be great for young adults. And I said, no way. It's no way, no way. It's not really. It wasn't as formed as I wanted to be. She said, you can do it. She's read some of my other writing. She said, you can do this. And so, thank goodness for her, because she pushed me and pushed me and said, I will help you outline or whatever you need to do. And I don't know, her faith in me kind of, create this own little spark inside myself that I can do it. And trials and tribulations later, I was able to do it. So that's how it kind of got going.
That's awesome. Thank you, Julian's friend, for pushing him to this book. How long did it take?
It took, oh goodness, I think I started it. I always say I think, I know. I started it in November of 2015 is when I really started working on it, and worked all through 2016 on it, and struggled all throughout 2016 with it. Got a couple of beta readers going on it, and then 2017, early 2017, that's when I finally said, okay, this is it. Stop editing, stop rewriting, stop doing this, and just submit it. Because after a while, it's good to working on it, but after a while, you've reworked it so much, or you've put so much thought into it, you kind of lose the original spark that it had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a point where it's overdone.
Yeah.
How would you say the book's changed from those first 2015 drafts to where it is now?
Oh gosh, it's dramatic. I would say it was a lot more dramatic than it is now. It was I won't say it was heavier, but there was just a lot more going on back in 2015 versus the 2017 version. And I just decided, this is not me. I'm lighthearted. I am funny. I am sarcastic, and this is what this needs to be. It needs to be fun, and while tackling the serious issues that I want to tackle. So a lot of that changed. And cleaned up a lot of unnecessary words too. It was very wordy. The early version was, I think, like 95,000 words. It was just way too wordy, and I learned how to tell a story in simple form instead of just trying to, describe every little bit, from the shoelace to what color the grass is today. It just became unnecessary. So I think that's what changed most, was I just cut out all the unnecessary stuff.
That's the sign of good editing, though, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you do, between several topics, because you've got several plot lines that run through here, but you've also got a vastly diverse cast and a pretty huge cast.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you don't have people wandering through for a single line somewhere and then not coming back. I'd say you probably have 6 or 8 principal characters running around in here, and that's a lot for any book. But then you tackle this as your first.
Yeah. Silly me. Should have just went solo.
Let's start with diverse cast. What did you do to make sure you kind of represented everyone appropriately? And of course you've got, Amir, so you've got a Muslim as like one of your major principal characters there too, and a Muslim teen who's also going through a lot.
Yeah. Well, fortunate for me, I grew up around very diverse friends, and going to high school is very diverse. So that kind of made it natural for me to have this diverse cast. It wasn't something I had to really think through and say, okay, I have to make sure I represent this section and this section and this section. It's natural for me. But making sure they were represented accurately, I made sure my beta readers were very diverse also. I didn't have one set type of beta reader, so that I could have eyes on everyone. And then as far as Amir, that was very, very cautious of me when I was writing that. I wanted to make sure he was represented as accurately as possible. So I went to friends of mine that are Muslim. I went to a sensitivity reader who was fantastic. She's amazing at what she did. She was so helpful. She was so encouraging. I never felt like I was being talked down to. I felt like I was being talked to by a friend who was saying, this is a great idea. Let's expand on this. Let's show more of this. And it really helped me to fully develop Amir as a person. After a while, I started to feel like, okay, he is just as important as Sebastian in here.
Mm-hmm.
His story needs to be told as well. He's not just a love interest. He is this story. So I was grateful to have that and having readers to come in and say, okay, let's look at this and let's maybe alter this, or great job here. This is exactly, how it was for me.
And you talked about, you growing up with, queer books that didn't end happy, and not many books with queer characters. But now you've got this book where many, many other ethnicities will see themselves in this YA book, whether or not they're the main characters, because you did cast such a big net. Was that important to you to do, to cast that kind of net?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it was so huge to me, and it was so I don't want to give away spoilers or anything, but it was so huge to make certain characters queer, because it needed to be seen that not just this set kind of person is going to be the main queer character, and that's it. It was so important for me to again, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but to have Amir in there as a gay Muslim. It was important for me to have Hunter in there as a black gay teen. Stuff like that was really my focus in showing, hey, we all grow up in different environments, but it doesn't mean that we are all different in certain ways. So that was really important for me.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you handled all of the teen stuff, because there's, Sebastian is friend, and Sebastian is maybe this person in this new relationship and mending his friendship, and Sebastian is maybe the team captain, and Sebastian as, just trying to be a player while sorting out his life.
Yeah.
I think the book, and you can correct me here if I'm wrong, covers maybe 8 weeks with camp and school, and so much happens.
Yeah. I definitely thought about that, because at first it wasn't. It was really even shorter than that. It was just like 2 weeks at camp, and then it was like a game and whatnot. And I thought to myself, well, no, I need to expand this. But at the same time, I think this is for everyone. So much happens in your life within just the span of a week. If you look at how much happens within 2 months, 3 months, it's a lot. And you wear a lot of different hats to make it through. And that's what I wanted to do with Sebastian, is not just show him as just this one-dimensional character, but the fact that he has to be the best friend, he has to be the ex-friend, and he has to be the team goalie and possible captain. And he also has to be this guy who's trying to figure out his life. And I think that's for all of us. We may not notice, in the now what we have going on, but in hindsight, we look back and say, wow, I was doing a lot at this time, and I made it through.
Mm-hmm. How did you pick soccer? Is soccer big for you, or did you just pick soccer as the sport to do?
So it was a interesting process with soccer. There's 2 sports that I am great at keeping up with, and that is soccer and volleyball. Put me in any other sport and I couldn't tell you what was happening. I couldn't name any kind of rules or anything. But those 2 I've loved. But soccer, I really want to go with, because it is a sport that I enjoy, but it's also something that my sister played. So I remember that was my first experience with going to like a high school sporting event, was going to watch my little sister play soccer. And my first experience, with seeing a really out athlete in a difficult situation was watching when Robbie Rogers came out. And that was huge for me. It was just like, wow, I can't believe this, in a sport where I've known, there's issues with homophobia and there's issues with all kinds of things. To see him come out was big. And that kind of started to spark inside of me, like, what if this happened on, a smaller level? What if this happened in high school? How important is that to be able to be out and open in your teens versus waiting until, you know, your late 20s or 30s to be accepted by the world. So that's the other thing that kind of fueled me picking soccer. Was like, okay, this is something I want to see happen for a younger generation.
Mm-hmm. You went with third person present tense.
Yeah.
Which I don't come across a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What sent you down that path instead of a more traditional third person past or even first person past, since the whole book is in Sebastian's point of view?
I don't know what is about third person I was just so comfortable doing. I think for the first book, it was important for me to do third person because I didn't want to get so into Sebastian's head that I started to really mess up the story I wanted to tell. And I felt more comfortable being able to do it from third person. And then also, like you said, this is huge cast, and I wanted to be able to show them in a certain way, and third person gave me that ability. While with first person, I don't know if it would have gave me that because it's really just from Sebastian's point of view strictly. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be able to really show Amir in any scene that I wanted to show him in without being completely from Sebastian's view and whatnot. So that worked for me. And I've always been, you know, the present tense kind of person. I struggle so hard writing past tense, really bad. Even when I was writing papers in school and stuff, it was really hard for me. So that's always going to be probably my comfort zone. But whether it's first person or third, I think I'm learning to manage and juggle that a little better.
Okay, that's cool. Well, with this being your first book, what was the most surprising part of getting this book into the world?
The response. Definitely. It is. I am daily overwhelmed by the response. I wasn't expecting it at all. I thought, okay, I'm going to write this nice little cute summer romance, this nice coming of age story, and a couple of people are going to read it. I was happy with that. My goal was to reach a handful of LGBTQ teens and say, this is for you. But the response has been overwhelming, you know, in such a positive way. And to see the impact, you know, that it's having, and it's not even out yet. So that's been the most surprising part, because I was prepared just to be this little, you know, first book and, you know, just kind of carry on and maybe go on to a second book kind of thing. But to see, you know, what it's doing and hoping the places that it'll go, it's been really major for me.
Which is so awesome to hear. For such a good book and a first book, you know, kind of all at the same time.
Yeah.
And especially one like this. I just can't emphasize that enough. And I love that you put it as it's a good summer read, because that's exactly right. It's coming out at a great time for people to go off on their summer breaks and read this book.
Yeah, the timing is perfect for it and the feel of it. The only regret I have about the timing is now I can't go to high school visits and say, hey guys, let's talk about the book because, oh, you're on summer break. But yeah, I love that it's coming out during summer, because I mean, the teens need that over their summer break, and young adults need that in between going from high school to college. It's just something good to pass the time and like, oh, okay, this is, you know, I can take my next step now.
And I think you'll have plenty of high school visits to do in the fall.
Yeah, I would love that. That has definitely been my goal, is being able to do high school visits and like go to libraries, because those were such important times for me. Being able to do that and give back in any way I can and just talk to people, I love that.
Mm-hmm. Now, we talked a little bit about everything you built into this book. As you were working on it, were you more of the plotter kind of outliner type of writer to know how to get from point A to point B, or was it more like write it all and sort it out all in the editing?
Yeah, definitely the latter. I am now a serious outliner, but I guess I learned that from trying to do this first book, because that's what took so long, is because I didn't have a solid outline. And for me, there was a lot of, oh my gosh, I just had this dream, I've got to include it into the book, and trying to find a place to put it in there and writing a whole nother scene kind of thing didn't work. But I definitely thoroughly enjoyed that also, because it gave me so many words to kind of pick and choose what I want to do and where I wanted to go with it. So I'm learning my lessons as a writer, and you know who I am as a writer. I definitely think I'm a little bit more of an outliner, but I'm not a you know, hardcore outliner. I like to write little steps, little, little benchmarks for where I want to get to and how I want to move a plot idea.
Sure. You got to leave room for those dreams that you have in the middle of the night to get in
Yes.
there.
I don't know how people are able to wake up in the middle of the night and write, because it's such a struggle for me. But I know when I wake up in the morning or whenever I wake up, it's like I have note cards spread across the room with just little small ideas or one sentence here and there. And then it's trying to piece it all together is the fun part, I think, for me, because it's like, okay, where does this work kind of thing. It's almost like solving this mystery and trying to put all the clues together.
What was your writing like before you got into this book? You'd mentioned your friend who'd read other stuff of yours.
Yeah, I was fan fiction. I was fandom
Okay.
for quite a while, and not like one particular one. I like to jump all over the place, just for the experience and just to be able to write different characters. So that was life for me, but it wasn't something I took it seriously, but it was more like a fun get my mind outside of work, like the day job stuff. So that's what it was for me. And it wasn't until people kept saying you need to, become a book writer that, I ever gave it the serious attention I do give it now.
What were your favorite fandoms to write in?
Favorite fandoms to write in. Let's see. I don't want to show my age too much. But I loved the cartoon Thundercats growing up. Yes, I'm definitely showing my age. But I love the cartoon Thundercats. I love doing stuff like that. Like, cartoons, I think, are great. They're wonderful, but they're also very limited in their storytelling. And I think that was my first exposure to saying, okay, I could really develop this into something serious kind of thing. And then I was in the One Direction fandom for a while.
Okay.
And that was a fun experience for me. It was.
And that's certainly a huge one too.
Huge. I felt it may have been too big for me kind of thing. Because that's a huge fandom, and they are hardcore. But I had so much fun. I developed so many friends in there, and I think in a time when I needed it, it was there for me. And I don't know, I feel like it healed a lot of old wounds being able to write in that fandom, because I was able to take storylines in all kinds of places. So yeah.
Nice. That's cool. And you mentioned, of course, comic books we had in the intro. What are your comic books that you're into in the moment?
At the moment, gosh, you would hit me with this question, because I grew up as a Marvel fan. Listen, you couldn't tell me anything but Marvel. But recently, I'm so much a DC person kind of right now, and that's only because I love Nightwing. I love Nightwing. You can give me any comic with Nightwing in it, and I will read Nightwing. And I love the Bat family. There's some characters I could live without, but I love the Bat family. But I will always be a Marvel fan. Anything X-Men related, anything Avengers related, I will always be. Yeah, I definitely, and I mean, like, all the X-Men titles. All of them. I was from X-Men to X-Factor to X-Force. I was reading Gambit. I was reading, Nightcrawler, whatever. So that's always going to be at the heart. But right now, I'm definitely, anything Nightwing, I'm there.
So what authors actually inspire you?
Oh, gosh. How much time do we have?
I could give you like 5 or 10 minutes if you want.
Yeah, when I say I am all over the place, I am all over the place. I think I have this thing where I cannot read the same kind of book back to back to back. I have to try all different things. So for me, inspiration, Benjamin Symes. I love Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. That book, I think I read a page or a chapter a day. It's so amazing and such a great book about friendship and coming of age. So he's very inspirational for me. I wish I was, on his level. A couple of others that I love. I love Simon James Green. He wrote this book called Noah Can't Even, from the UK. Hilarious stuff. So I love him. I'm definitely inspired by C.B. Lee. She's just an amazing, talented writer who really knows her characters. It's an author by the name of S.J. Gosling. She wrote a YA book called Whatever. Hilarious book. I think Mike Tate, the main character in that book, was probably me at some point during my teen years. He was great. But I'm really getting into a lot of different people now. I just started reading Emily Exarpan and her book, The Astonishing Color of After. It's amazing. It's amazing. Her prose is just ridiculous. It is. But the biggest writer for me that inspiration-wise is definitely Becky Albertine. And that's coming from not just her writing style. I love it. I love laughing at it. I love crying at it. It's great. But as a person, I truly, truly enjoy her. And that's kind of what started our friendship, was me just sending her an email and saying, I love who you are as a person, because she's so open. She's so friendly. She takes the time to respond to every single reader. And I don't know how she does it, but, you know, that is the kind of person I always want to be, is that person who's always going to be open, always wanting to respond to each person. You know, I want to take the time to make sure you understand that you're important. Because I think those kind of relationships really help us as people. You know, we can't ignore any one person and say they're any lesser than this person over here. And so I love that about her. And so that for me is inspirational, is that not only can you be a talented writer, you can be a funny person, but you can be a genuinely honest and open person. So she's probably my biggest influence.
That's an amazing list.
Yeah. I could have kept going, but I was like, you know what, I'm just not going to keep going because it's just not necessary. But yeah, there's a lot of great authors out there, and I think the more praise, the better.
Mm-hmm. What's coming up next for you?
I am in the throes of writing another YA novel. It's going to be an own voices novel. It's going to have an openly gay black teen as the main character, and I'm not going to give away anything, because I don't want to spoil anything until it's all, at least the first draft is done.
Sure.
But it's definitely a lot of it is my story, about how I was in high school, the things I experienced, the different things with culture that I experienced, and he's just this guy trying to find himself, and I think that's definitely who I was in high school. I knew who I was, but I didn't know who I was fully, and that's the story that I want to tell. But it's also, I will never stray away from writing a romantic comedy. I'll never stray away from, making it funny and making the main character either clumsy or this giant nerd, because that's just who I am. And I think it's important to see that in characters, is just to see that, hey, they're just this regular old person. Their experience may be grand or maybe big, but they're also going to trip over their own feet. And so that's definitely what I want to make sure that he at least falls 3 times in the book. At least I know that much.
Yeah, the characters aren't very interesting if they don't fail somehow, even if it is just a trip over the foot.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That big moment where they think, oh my gosh, it's about to happen, and then they just, totally screw things up. That's it's important.
Any idea at this point when that might come out?
I'm gonna, as soon as I'm done with all the stuff with Running with Lions, I'm gonna go hardcore on trying to write this, and I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed that maybe it could come out next year, maybe late next year. Kind of, it's written, set in like the fall, so maybe I can coincide and make that happen, that it comes out fall of next year, but no set particulars yet.
All right, fair enough. Do you think YA is always going to be your thing, or do you have plans to branch?
I don't know if YA will always be my thing. It's always going to be, the heart and soul of me, because, I'm always going to reflect on my teen years and my childhood and say, I wish I would have had this to help me along. So I think I'm always going to want to write those stories. But I have another book that I have in the pipeline it's new adult. It follows some of the themes that I write into YA, but just from, a little bit of an older, character, that's all. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think I'd love to branch out, but I don't know how far I'd branch out, because I'd always want to reach, a certain kind of crowd.
Sure. Any chances of a Lion sequel somewhere in the future?
It's crossed my mind. when I wrote the book, I said, no, this is a standalone. I am not a series kind of person. I am terrible as a series writer. But I would love to explore their first year of college. I'd love to revisit these characters. They've become such a part of me now. I'd love to show more of Amir's story. I really, really would. So if I did do a Lion sequel, I think I would, try to do it either from his perspective or have a lot more focus on, the things that he's going through as a person.
Yeah, I mean, as a fanboy, I would love to see more of Amir, but there's also, the supporting characters like Mason or Hunter that I would love to read their story. See what's going on there.
A Mason story I think I could do. I could do that in a heartbeat because that's me all the way. Mason is me all the way. I could definitely write a nice little sarcastic, funny book starring him. But I'd also love to explore his family life. And I think if I did do a sequel, I would incorporate Gray a lot more also. I think she was a fun character for me. Her and there's another character in the book named Gio, who readers get a glimpse of, but I think, he was kind of begging to kind of break out. So, I think I would probably explore all the minor characters. It would be a book, where Sebastian would be, the minor character and everybody else would have their own little storyline, to really, show more of them.
Yeah, well, I'll keep my fingers crossed for all of that.
Okay. Well, I'll have some talks with my publisher and see how that goes.
So what's the best way for people to keep up with you online so they can follow along with your writing and what's next and all that?
The best way, I'm very active on Twitter, something I never thought I would say like 2 years ago, but I'm very active on Twitter. You can find me at JulianW_writes on Twitter. I try to be as active as possible on Instagram. It's Winters Julian on Instagram, so people can definitely follow me there. I still have my Tumblr up, Julian Winters on Tumblr, so they can probably find me there. But if you really want to reach me, it's probably going to be Twitter and then Instagram.
All right, we'll link to that, and of course links to the book and the authors that you mentioned in our show notes, so people can find you. Julian, thanks so much for being with us. We wish you all the success with this amazing book.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I really appreciate it.